What?
See, the people in the back didn't even respond, which means I definitely need a microphone. Alright, so does this work better for the people in the back? Especially the guy with the funny hat on that probably can't hear at all?
Which one?
No. This means no in America. Alright, anyway, this is the Anime Mythbusters panel where we put anime scenarios to the test of science. I'm John Boise, and this is going to be a mythstravaganza. Apparently they're giving me an hour and a half instead of my normal 1 hour that I usually take, which means I needed to find an extra 30 minutes of stuff to do today. And I only found that out 2 days ago, so hopefully it's not going to be too bad because I've been doing this panel for 3 years now. I started in 2009, and every year I revise this panel, take out old stuff, put in new stuff, and I've done it now 2 revisions, so 2010, 2011, and each year I tour the new version to all sorts of conventions around the Midwest. Now each year when I do this, it takes over 100 hours of work to put this panel together. And that's not the amount of time I spend watching the anime, it's the amount of time that I do doing the math, doing the background research, figuring out what I want to say, how I want to say it, and putting together the PowerPoint demonstrations and things like that. Another way I could put it is I take 2.5 work weeks where I don't get paid to do this. The only hobby that I have that takes more time than this, that isn't a job or like a household chore, is World of Warcraft. So that's where this ranks, second only to WoW. So since this is something that's so important to me and I spend so much time on, I want to take a little bit of time at the beginning here to talk about just where this panel came from and where it fits in the grand scheme of things as me as a science educator. Because not only do I go around doing panels like this, I teach high school math and science, and I also write for the astronomy news website Universe Today. But anyway, obviously I think science is very important, and I kind of want to try to get across what's so important about it here. And I first started doing these panels because of a very sad realization I had. As Americans, we collectively suck at science. In 2008, there was a survey called the Science and Engineering Indicators. It's done every couple years, but in 2008, and it hasn't changed in probably 20 years, but they had a quote saying, "Many Americans do not give correct answers to basic factual questions about science and questions about the scientific inquiry process." To show you just how bad this is, here's an example of one of the questions that they ask. How long does it take for the Earth to go around the sun? Somebody want to try to answer? A year, yeah. That's kind of the definition of a year. How many Americans do you think can get this question right?
25%.
40, 25?
Oh.
Everyone gets it right. Everyone should get it right. Everyone passed second grade, I hope. Yet, very sadly, only about 62% of Americans know this. What's worse is that when they conducted the survey to ask this question, they first had to answer another question correctly. They had to answer the question, does the Earth go around the sun or does the sun go around the Earth? 1/5 of Americans got that wrong. Yeah, I'm seeing face palms all over. This is kind of sad, but okay, let's give them as much credit as we can here. Who cares about the definition of a year? I think the only time we really think about it is maybe on December 31st when we're drunkenly making our New Year's resolutions we won't keep the next day. So, who cares? But what if it's something we should care about? Something that might actually, impact our health? Well, let's look at a question that they had like that. True or false? Antibiotics kill viruses as well as bacteria? This is?
False.
Oh good, I didn't hear a single true in there. Good, it is false. Better or worse than the previous question? What do you think?
Worse.
Worse? 53.5% of Americans don't know how to take medications that will actually make them better. Thank God it's the doctors doing the prescribing and not just people picking stuff up off the shelf, taking antibiotics when they don't need them, and making all sorts of super bacteria that we can't cure. So dangerous situation here. But I want to give an example of a really bad case. One of the reasons that this happens is that there's a lot of misinformation out there. And this was a study done in the UK where they looked at 10 newspapers for 1 week and picked out every health claim. And the UK is in much the same situation that the US is in. And they found that out of 111 dietary health claims, 72 and 68%, judged by 2 different standards of evidence, had levels of evidence lower than the convincing or probable categories that are recommended for dietary health claims. What this means is that the media is reporting things from scientific journals that the scientists themselves say aren't really conclusive. So scientifically illiterate media is pushing it on a scientifically illiterate population, and people are doing things that they think are helping, but really aren't. And there's a really good example of this. How many people heard about this paper from 1998? It was done by Andrew Wakefield in the UK medical journal The Lancet, which showed a correlation between vaccination rates and autism. You've heard of it?
Yeah.
Is it a good study or a bad study?
Bad.
Very bad. It has all sorts of problems. It has methodological flaws. Anyone that's ever passed junior high should know that when you do an experiment, you need a control group. This guy only had 12 kids he studied. None of them were a control group. Major flaw there. He did what's called a PCR, or polymerase chain reaction, where it magnifies the results of what you're supposed to get.
Did you say he did the study on only 12 children?
Only 12 children.
That's not that good.
Yeah, it doesn't even have statistical significance. It's worthless. But his results were contaminated too because his PCR was detecting things that it shouldn't have because he didn't have a good enough sample. So the study itself was flawed. You can't tell that immediately. But there's other problems. Normally, if you have conflicting interests, you're supposed to announce them in your paper. If you're getting paid to come to a conclusion, people should know about it in science. He was getting paid by lawyers who wanted him to come to this result so they could sue the pharmaceutical industry. He didn't disclose that anywhere. And he was also trying to develop his own vaccine to market against the ones that he was trying to discredit. Didn't announce that either. But more problems. Other studies tried to use his method to come to the same conclusions. Didn't work. Other studies trying to come to the same conclusions through other methods. Didn't work. And worst of all, his conduct was horribly unethical. He was taking children into the hospital for processes they didn't need, including painful spinal taps without parental permission. And he was also getting blood samples at his kids' birthday parties, paying the kids an equivalent of $5, taking enough blood that they would pass out from it, and then he'd make jokes about it. I mean, this guy all around is a huge ass. Yet, all sorts of media organizations reported this as if this was some serious thing. And what do you think happens when the media reports something like that? Well, first off, the vaccination rates in many countries plummeted. Here's what happened in the UK. In 1996, 92% of people were vaccinated. By 2003, only 61% of children were vaccinated. If you stop vaccinating, what do you think is going to happen? Infection rates skyrocket. 1998, 56 cases of measles in the whole year. In 2006, 449 within the first 5 months. In 2008, the British Medical Association declared measles endemic, which means that it's not something that people are bringing in. It's already in the culture, and there's not enough people who have immune systems or vaccinations to stop it, so it's just running rampant. They've allowed that to happen for a disease that was killed off. Imagine what would have happened if we stopped vaccinating against polio before it was completely out of the population. If that happened, we would still have polio today, and it wouldn't be in one vial, in one lab in the world, which is about to be destroyed. So that's what we face. And in the US, we can say it's even worse. Since 2007, according to the Center for Disease Control, there have been over 80,000 preventable infections, things that we should vaccinate against, but people haven't, and it's caused over 700 deaths. Now, you can't directly say that this is directly caused by this horrible study, but it's a pretty good indication when you see what's happened in other countries right after that time. So this is why I think science is really important. I want people to understand where science is coming from and why it directly impacts our lives. And I want people to kind of be excited about it. So what does this have to do with anime? Well, that study also said more Americans select television as their primary source for science and technology than any other medium. To be fair, that's talking mostly about news programs or Nova documentaries, but I don't think it's just that. A lot of times when we watch science fiction, we don't know where to draw the line between what's fiction and what's fact. If we watch an episode of Star Trek and they're doing something with the primary fluctuation coils in the subspace continuum, you're going to look at that and go, yeah, that's BS. Now, in that same episode, if someone falls down a flight of stairs, you go, yeah, this is a fiction show. Gravity ain't real. So there's this continuum of, you know it's fake, you know it's real, but what's in the middle ground? You don't always know, and if you go to a sci-fi convention, I know I'm saying this in anime convention, but you will see the people there that will tell you about all the cool stuff that you can do in space that just doesn't work. So that's where this panel comes from. Is that I want people to start thinking critically about what they see, even if they know it's probably fiction. Just do some critical thinking, because it's not just fun. It can actually be very important. And I want to show people that science can be fun without having to be bullshit. The other thing that I get as an objection a lot of times is people go, well, aren't you destroying the whole suspension of disbelief? Well, a little bit, but I think Carl Sagan has a very fabulous quote. He says, it is sometimes said that scientists are unromantic, that their passion to figure out robs the world of beauty and mystery. But is it not stirring to understand how the world actually works? It does no harm to the romance of a sunset to know a little bit about it. So I'll go ahead and actually get started now. But first I need to do some warnings. This panel contains algebra, graphs, scientific notation, technical language, calculus, and inequalities. No! Calculus, the bane of my existence. But that's okay, because I have one more warning. It also contains explosions. If you can't understand that first part, that's okay. You can just kind of zone out for a little bit. I'll come back to it and explain what the heck it means at the end, which anyone hopefully can understand. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started. I want to look at one of the kind of topics that is ubiquitously done wrong in every anime I've almost ever seen. To give an example, I'm going to give a clip from Advent Children, because I know people like that movie. This clip is kind of excessively long, but, well, it's got Cloud and Sephiroth, so I hope you'll forgive me. That was a lot going on, so let me kind of break down what I want to specifically look at in this. So they're standing on top of the building, they take the sword, cut out this huge slab from underneath them, and they're falling down the side of the building with all the material. And as they're falling, they're jumping and walking around on the little blocks that are falling with them, having this epic sword fight to fantastic music. Again, it's a lot going on, so let me try to simplify this. I put together my own little custom animation that doesn't have quite so much going on. I don't have sound for this one, so I'll have to narrate it. One day, Bowser kidnaps Luigi. Mario rushes home to the scene to save the day, but Bowser flies off in the sky. Fortunately, bars start falling from the sky. Mario hops up them and saves the day. Yay! So, what's the problem with this? Well, let's start off by kind of getting an understanding of what's going on with things in freefall. Anytime you have an object in freefall, there's going to be two main forces acting on it. You have a downwards force, thanks to gravity, and if you remember Newton's laws, any force can be expressed as the mass times the acceleration. So we can call this ma, where a is going to be the acceleration due to gravity. In a minute I'm going to switch that off and call it g. But resisting that downwards motion is going to be another force going up, which is the resistive force of friction. It's going to have a couple components to it. It has k, which is going to be some constant that has to do with how viscous the fluid is. Meaning if you're falling through air, it doesn't resist a whole lot, so that'll be small. But if you were falling through water, it would be higher, or if you were falling through molasses, it would be really high. So that's what k is all about. M again is the mass, and v is the velocity that you're falling, which is going to change with time. So if you're not moving at all, there's no resistive force. There's no resistance from the air on a not moving laptop. Now if I tried to throw it across the room, the air would try to resist it, so that will change as v changes. So that's why we have to have that v term in there. What we want to know is how is this going to move as time goes on, so we need to try to sort this all out, figure out a function that will describe this as x. So, let's bust out the calculus. I know, people start leaving now.